Good afternoon, Professor Milica. We are going to talk about our lesson plan. Before we explain it, we must say that this task is addressed to teenagers. They come from a private English course and their level is B1. We have considered 9 students to design this task, and it connects the teaching of pronunciation to reading and listening. Before we explain the methods we have applied to design this task, we must say that it implies teaching the correct pronunciation of ed endings. But it is necessary to say that before this, students are aware that the problem exists. Previously, we have developed an opening activity to identify the most common mistakes. In that moment, students realized that they have trouble at pronouncing ed endings. In order to understand this problem, we have carefully researched about interlanguage errors, and we have concluded that there is a negative transfer in our students because they tend to generalize the pronunciation of ed endings. And this might be because in Spanish, words are commonly pronounced as they are written, but in English, there are some rules to pronounce ed sounds. We must say that this lesson represents a holistic learning because it includes a variety of activities for students to be engaged to the lesson. This task also involves traditional and modern methods. To explain this, we have taken the information from Teaching Pronunciation by Celce, Murcia, Brinton, and Goodwin. We have used the direct method because in this activity, students will have to listen and imitate a short dialogue from the series Anne with an E. We also have taken into account the reform movement because this activity includes phonetic training to teach the correct pronunciation. With this, we are using, as I say, the reform movement because students will know the phonetic transcription of ed pronunciation. We also have some techniques that are reading aloud recitation and recording of learners' production. We also have a modern teaching method implied. And before we introduce this method, we should say that Ana de Souza states that L2 phonological awareness is developed through L2 experience and use. In fact, this method is currently used by many English courses, and the purpose of it is the use of the language rather than the form of the language. In depth, the main goal for teachers should be to have students engaged in meaningful conversations. The activities, tasks, and resources should be created towards the use of the language, and in this method, speaking features as pronunciation become essential to develop. Furthermore, this method is aware of the threshold existing in oral communication skills in EFL students. It doesn't matter if they master grammar and vocabulary skills, because if they don't know how to use the language, some communication problems will be evident. The main goal for communicative approach teaching is to enable learners to have an intelligible communication. So to continue with this exposition, I must say that the communicative approach says that learners need language knowledge and knowledge of how to use the language, and this is actually communicative competence. So that is the reason why we have decided to use some traditional methods in order for the learner to know the language, and we have used some modern methods in order for the learner to know how to use the language. To continue with this exposition, Alexandra will introduce this lesson plan.
The way your speech sounds can have a big impact on whether or not people will understand what are you saying. Even when people have perfect vocabulary knowledge and structures, there is a lot of difficulty in the pronunciation of certain words, especially if they have similar endings but with different sounds. It is for this reason that the objective of this class focuses on developing the ability of the students to articulate AD endings for regular verbs properly. The learning materials are very essential because they can significantly increase students' achievement. They are the most important tools available to the teachers when teaching the contents according to the contributions of Ausable. Materials offer the students the possibility of successfully reaching significant learning. Based on this theory and taking into account the importance of choosing the right tools, it has been considered to work with the following materials: audiobook and online book, where students should read and listen to the chapter called Matthew Cuthbert is Surprised. The select material will be previously delivered to the students so that they can become familiar with it. Alright 1984 considers that warm-up activities are designed to attract the students. The purpose of this warm-up activity is to engage the students with the class, so they have to watch the trailer of the series and answer this question: what adventures will Anne live through the story? A procedure is simply a method or purpose for getting things done in the classroom. The steps that consider in this class are the following. First, teacher has selected a monologue from the second chapter and present it to the students. Second, students read the monologue and get prepared to perform the scene. Third, students verify the pronunciation by listening to the audiobook. After that, students record themselves in the breakout rooms and send the link to the video to the teacher. Then, the teacher gathers the link and the whole class analyzes the recordings. Finally, students identify the mistakes done around.
Okay, so to continue with the explanation of our lesson part, after our students had identified their mistakes and enlist them, we as teachers have realized that the most common pronunciation error was ed endings in regular verbs. So we have to fix that error, and we choose to present them a friendly chart to let our students know the rules related to ed endings in regular verbs. So this chart is based on the pronunciation of ed endings according to the end of the word of the verb in the present tense. And they have to realize if the word is voiced or unvoiced, so that they have to pronounce like the ed endings like a d or t or like an id. So to realize if our students have fixed their mistake, we want to make them play this game that we put in the link in the slide. And the game consists in presenting again their how they have to pronounce the ed endings according to the end of the word. So if they have, if the word have to be like pronounced like a T or D or an ID, and then after they have realized that, they have to drag and drop the verbs according to their pronunciation in the past tense. As a closing activity, we want our students to fix their mistakes and record the video again in the dialogue of Am with an E, so that they can realize how they pronounce before this class and after this class. And that's the evaluation part. Our students have to compare the first video with the second one. And as a wrap-up activity, we choose a group of students to apply what they have learned, making them read this tongue twister, Peter Piper, because we found here that we have a lot of ed regular verbs, so that we can realize if they have really acquired the exact pronunciation, and to check they also have the audio of the tongue twister so that they can evaluate themselves. Finally, as a conclusion, and after doing these activities, our students are aware of ed ending pronunciation. So we are going to present some examples of one of our students recording herself before this class and after this class, to observe that the student's pronunciation is better the second time. So here we go with the videos.
A 5:30 train has been in and gone half an hour ago, but there was a passenger dropped off for you, a little girl. She's sitting out of there of the shingles. I asked her to go into the ladies' waiting room, but she informed me gravely that she preferred to sit out. There was more scope for imagination, she said. She is a case, I should say. The 5:30 train has been in and gone half an hour ago, but there was a passenger dropped off for you, a little girl. She's sitting out up there on the shingles. I asked her to go into the ladies' waiting room, but she informed me gravely that she preferred to stay out. There was more scope for imagination, she said. She's a kid, I should say.
Peter Piper pecked a peck of pickled peppers. Did Peter Piper pick a peck of pickled peppers? If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked?